look at documents to begin with?
Yeah, exactly. So I think traditionally for a lot of companies, they've always needed to manually review documents to extract information from a PDF, like a bank statement or a tax return. And that required someone to open the document, manually review it, and then insert data from that document into a workflow. And that really created a bottleneck for financial firms like us that were scaling rapidly, where within the workflow, we would need to have someone manually review documents. And I'll talk about a couple specific use cases, one being the onboarding flow. So for our fintech company, when a new customer is onboarded, one of the requirements were that they would upload 4 of the most recent bank statements. And when they uploaded those, someone would have to check, did they actually upload the 4 most recent bank statements or not? And that was a check before we started the underwriting process to make sure that they had uploaded the documents that they needed, and they were proper bank statements and not just images of their cat for to save, which we did get cat images uploaded before. So that used to be a manual process, and we evaluated a number of tools for the back office document processes like onboarding and underwriting. And traditionally, we used OCR tools that required us to upload a number of documents to uptrain the model and to really optimize for an F1 score that was never really that accurate, that was expensive, and was not very performant. They normally only could handle 16 pages per batch, so it was really slow, which was important for use cases like onboarding, where we wanted to give the customer real-time feedback of, did you upload the right documents or not? Also, one thing that traditional OCR tools really struggled with, tables, charts, getting details from financial documents that typically have more complex data structures and have a lot of rich data within images and charts and tables.
Actually, one of the just something that I never really talked too much about is the sort of the speed and like the throughput of some of the existing like OCR providers, which always surprised me, because I kind of assumed like if you're Amazon, like your AWS, like you should have like a decent level of throughput, but it's really kind of a bottleneck on that side. Yeah. And that one always surprised me. The other thing is the cost side as well, which is, I would say, like one of the biggest things we've heard from a lot of people is not just like, is it expensive, not expensive? It's just that it's confusing. Yeah. Because like all the cost fundings are like, $10 per 1,000 pages for layout, and then it's like an extra $10 per 1,000 pages for table, and then form elements, and then like signature. It's like an a la carte menu where requires you to like know exactly what's going to be on the page ahead of time before like knowing how much you're going to pay for it. Yeah. And it's just like hard to know like, okay, what is this going to cost me?
Right. 100%. And I think like a lot of that might be because of the technology getting better to provide pricing models like yours that is really straightforward and easy. I'd love to hear more about how you guys decided on the pricing model and what it looks like, the simplicity of your pricing model.
Yeah, we it was not there's no like calculus behind it really. We were just like, okay, like this is reasonable. This is something where like we make money on it. We're not like losing money on it, and it works. And then we really made a lot of the pricing model decisions kind of like in a vacuum, like weren't exactly like shopping against all the existing providers there. And just kind of wanted to come up with something that like seems reasonable. And in general too, I'm on like just like subject to like usage-based pricing and stuff, especially for things like the document processing workflows. It is actually a really interesting topic for me, because you kind of have a couple elements to it. You have like what does it cost, and then like what's the value that it
Right.
produces. And especially when you're looking at a situation where you're like, okay, somebody was doing this job manually. It took them like 8 hours to go through like 25 documents, and they
Right.
just did that like every single day. Like the cost per page, like no one really like thinks of it in that metrics. No one's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we're spending $8.12 per page to do this. It's more of just like we get it done faster. When it's automated, it's like cool, totally automated, like gets this process just done. It's more like someone just doesn't want to do that.
Right.
Like, it's just not it's not a fun way to spend your time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely saw, I mean, over the last 2 years, the cost really collapse around document intelligence, which is really exciting because I think that opens up a lot of new workflows. I think both the cost was collapsing and the technology was exponentially getting better on both performance, accuracy, and I think that's really opened up a lot of new use cases. And it's really exciting to see, tools like Omni AI come out on the market and make it so that it really makes sense from both like a accuracy and price standpoint to start pushing these models into production.
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the other big things that's been really enabled across the board from just like LLMs is the ease of setup. So one thing is like, for like text extraction, like, Azure or GCP, the uptraining thing where you're like optimizing for that F1 score, you like upload 20 documents, you have to go manually label all of them. And if, for instance, you had a use case where it's like you were always going to get the exact same document every single day and you knew the format, then a lot of these problems were solved like 10 years ago. I mean, think about like the like tax forms are a great example. Like they're literally, the documents themselves are designed so that it's got boxes where the information goes in, and it's kind of made to be like machine readable.
Yeah, for this exact reason, probably.
Exactly, for this exact reason. If like easy boxes, the number will be in box 17.
Right.
But then the issue comes about where it's like you've got all these like a bunch of different like various document templates that have tons of different formats, and you don't have the ability to go through and like predict all of them in advance. And you oftentimes like don't have like the dev team at your company like that's able to like dedicate a bunch of time to do this, or you're at a company that just doesn't even have a dev team. And one of the things I've sort of started classifying here is what I call the like 20-hour per week problems. And this is something where like somebody is spending like 20 hours per week on some sort of like inventory report that they get, and they have to go like plug it into like an ERP system.
Right.
And it's always been like at that threshold where you're not going to like hire a dev team to go solve that one problem. And so someone just does it. It's kind of like forever.
Right.
But now that it's like, through a combination of like better document processing or just like, more agentic type tools, more like no code builders, like all of this stuff.
Right.
I think that you're just seeing like, this massive like industry opportunity of these 20-hour per week problems where it's like, they never really, like no one wants to do this, but there was never like, well structured enough that you could like hire like a dev team to go and like build out the specific use case.
And at the end of the day, like the people who know the back office processes that are ripe for disruption are the people who are doing it on the day-to-day. And people with the business background, maybe not the technical background, I think when they see tools like Omni AI, the light bulb goes off of, wow, I could use that for, fill in the blank, for onboarding, for underwriting, for this manual document workflow that's taking my team a lot of time, and also being a bottleneck for our company. So I think there's a lot of really exciting back office manual document workflows where people are looking through documents manually, and reviewing them and extracting information that tools like yours are going to add a lot of value to. One question I actually have for you that I just thought about that's really interesting. even today, and I know you post a lot of content about the evals, even today, if you feed a document to a large language model, a lot of times the places where the large language model slips up are those tables that are very complex, or charts. So I know those are areas where tools like yours really do a great job of the advanced extraction, I would say, of information. I guess from your perspective, what was like the hardest element within a document to extract information from? Was it these charts? Was it these tables?
That's
Because that's what always slipped up when we used traditional OCR tools. It was things like multi-line item descriptions within a bank statement that were like the hardest, and especially because they're dynamic. Sometimes they're a single line item, sometimes they're multi-line items. I'm sure that you spent a lot of time deep diving into this. Like, what was the hardest element to extract from documents?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there are a lot of challenges out there. I would say probably tables are the hardest one. It's and so it comes down to a few different things. Like one, there's always like this like column normalization sort of thing where it's like these stacked columns, or like you'll have like tables extending across pages is another big one, where it's like you'll have on page one, you'll have the headers, and you'll have like 15 more pages of just the table content with no like headers associated with it. And so like being able to carry that context down to everything is a big one. I have such strong opinions on the tables that people put into documents these days. Just because you draw borders around something doesn't mean it's a table. They'll just be like a table, then you'll have like a paragraph section, then like a little sub table under that, and it's this thing is not one table. This is just like you like wrote your entire PDF and then you like drew borders around everything. So it's that was probably the hardest, and continues to be the hardest. There are some things too where it comes down to just density on the page is the biggest. The classic, like somebody goes and has like a 1,000-line Excel file and just goes and like print as PDF and then emails that to somebody. And so the document itself will actually it'll be like a one-page PDF, but that one page will be like 17 pages long, and you need to kind of like have like a window that moves across it as you're reading it. So that's another hard one. The charts and everything are actually a little bit more straightforward, because they're very easily like identifiable, and so we can like find charts, throw that through a different model to do the chart extraction there.
How about the values of charts? Like if a pie chart is like 60%, things of that nature. Yeah,
so we have the labeled and unlabeled axes charts. And so labeled axes, super straightforward. And what we typically do is like when we're running it through the OCR step, we actually try to transpose that over into like a table format. So it's like if you have the bar chart with like numbers on top of it, pretty good. Throw that into a table, it's pretty legible. We'll do estimation on things that don't have labels on it, and so we actually usually do the estimation. We'll have like a tilde in front of it as like a indicator that this was an estimated value coming off of the table there. Some of those I think will like never be particularly solvable. Like we've had some things where it's like stock market charts, like with the candlestick graphs and stuff like that, and it's just like, this chart is really showing like 600 data points. It's kind of that one's a pretty tough one. Yeah,
there's a lot of tough ones. And then you add the element of, is it scanned or is it machine readable? Like that's another place where, compared to OCR tools that existed a couple of years ago, we've really like seen advancements in extracting from a scanned document, or a document that was someone took a picture of, and is maybe not not lined up properly and things of that nature. That's another place where tools like yours do a really good job.
Yeah, even one of the surprising ones is pages that are just rotated. Rotate the page 90 degrees, and like every other tool just kind of like falls apart. And that was very, very easy like fixes to that. But like that by itself was like it's kind of surprising one. where, because every now and then you'll get these documents where it's just like one of the pages will randomly be in landscape mode, but it just doesn't line up with the training material. That's the edge cases are always the biggest thing, where it's like, I think that like document processing in general is like a very classic 80-20 problem, where it's like, you can get to an 80% solution like really quickly, and then that next 20% of like accuracy just takes like years of work, and just every single little like weird edge case, you just kind of like check them off over time, and it's an interesting thing to kind of like work on like as a company too, because we'll be able to just like, working on things that seem like really obscure problems, but it's like once you pretty much you check off like 8 more of these like edge case type items, and then like your overall accuracy goes up 1%, and you're like, hey, this is awesome. It doesn't seem like super newsworthy to be like, we are 1% more accurate, but if you're doing kind of like a million PDFs a month or something like that, like that extra 1% accuracy correlates to a massive amount of like manual effort saved.
Yeah, 100%. I think one thing I also want to talk about, I'm happy to talk about, tools that we use within our workflow, because for the people back at home who have, manual document processes that they're looking to solve, I think a lot of times they want to know how Omni plugs into the existing tools that they use. And with our workflow, we were integrating Omni with Box, which was our file repository, and then feeding information into Salesforce, which is where we stored all the information about our customers. But I know you guys have an Excel integration. I know you guys are working with a number of other integrations. How are you thinking about integrations so that end users can, one, bring in the files in places that they already live, like SharePoint, like Box, like Drive, for example, and then how do you think of that information that Omni is extracting, feeding it into downstream systems and to workflows so that you can automate these processes?
Yeah, no, I think the integrations are just going to be a big focus for us going forward. And actually, one of the we did actually start on like a Box integration specifically with like their partner team as well. And then I think the one of the biggest takeaways I have just from you personally was like how important like integrating into something like Salesforce is, and how it's like at the end of the day, Salesforce is not a CRM. Salesforce is a database, and it is where like 80% of corporate data actually ends up living.
Yes, source of truth, really, for a lot of companies. Yeah, especially around customer information. I mean, Salesforce talks about building a customer 360, and I think not only customer information, but some companies are using it for other types of information as well. So, yeah.
Well, I think of Salesforce as actually being if you're familiar, like Retool and like, because they have like this custom UI builder, they've got some like no code builders inside of it.
Yeah, Flow, Salesforce Flow, for those who are familiar, very powerful no code, low code automation tool, which is what we used for feeding Omni information into Salesforce.
Yeah. I think that going forward, the name of the game, kind of like mentioned before, is like ease of use. Like how easily can somebody like set something up for themselves? Coming in from like a non-technical perspective, and so like working with you guys, extremely technical team, and so it's just like, hey, here's an API, use the API, build your solution, build the integrations, you've got it. And I'd say it's like the majority of our customers right now. It's like really technical teams, and so they just like, hey, give me the API endpoint and I've got this. But I think that, obviously, like as we continue to grow, one of the bigger focuses is going to be, okay, how do we make it so we can just, anyone can do this, anyone can just plug in and do things. And I think that, like Salesforce integration type work and, integrating into all these other like SharePoint, OneDrive, like pretty much anything where people are keeping all their data today is going to be the easiest thing. So it's just one click, auth in, get the data out.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Go to where the files live, and then send the information to where either you want the end users to view the information or access the information, or into workflows so that you can automate these processes. I think that makes a lot of sense.
I think one one big highlight that's it's always hard to remember, like building in the AI space,
Right.
is avoid process change.
Right.
Because as you start digging in to like a lot of these processes, we'll be doing like, okay, we're going to automate this like document ingestion piece here, and the whole time we're doing it, we're like, should this even be a document to begin with? Like, shouldn't this have been like a button on a website?
Yes.
Like, can't this be like a web form sort of
Yeah.
thing? It's like, as you start pulling these strings, you kind of get into like, wait, hold on, isn't there a better way that we could just re-architect this entire division? But then you have to remember the reason things are not like that is because like there's a process in place. People, only have like so much ability to change things.
Yeah.
And I think that's where things just like integrations, like easy plugins and stuff go, because like, even if we could come up with like a way better way to architect the entire thing,
Right.
big thing is just like, I have one core pain point. I want something that just like fits right into my existing stack without me changing my process and just speeds it up by like 50%.
Right. Yeah, and I'll give you a real world example. I definitely really resonate that. At my last company, there was a number, when I took over the tech team, there was a number of e-signature workflows where we were using DocuSign to bring in customer information when they were onboarding and then send that to external parties. And because of that, there was a number of processes where we'd have to have someone manually extract information from DocuSigns and put it into Salesforce. And that was one that we, saw was very inefficient, not secure, and really manual. And it was a really big bottleneck for our team. And that's something where we replaced that with a digital form so that it fed directly into Salesforce and created a lead automatically, as opposed to creating this e-signature file that then we had to extract information from. I think another thing in the AI space that I see a lot is teams struggling to get things into production. Something we were talking about earlier is how can, for everyone out there, how can you go from experimenting with tools like Omni AI to really thinking through, one, what are the workflows that I should be looking to automate? What are the back office processes where right now there's a manual review and someone has to do manual data entry to take information from a file and put it into a system? How do you go from finding those use cases to getting into production? And I know that you guys are doing a lot of great work around evals, which I think is something that's really important, so that you can say, I know that this system is going to give me the right answer X percentage of the time. But maybe I'm definitely happy to talk about the things that we did to feel comfortable when we were pushing things into production, and also having fallbacks where when the system doesn't extract information properly, that there is some sort of fallback. But I'd love to hear across like all of your customers, what are some things that people are doing before they look to push something from a sandbox into production?
Yeah, it's a good question. So you're right on evals being like huge, and it's one of those things where within like software engineering, within like ML AI stuff, like people are really like, okay, evals are obviously super important.
Right.
But then like if you were typically like doing this job manually, like you don't have like an eval for yourself. It's kind of like, well, what do you mean? Like I get the information and I plug it into the system.
How accurate are the humans?
How accurate are the humans? Like, you're not like evaling yourself and like benchmarking yourself. And so, I think that the simple fact of the matter is like AI is not 100% accurate. At Omni, we're not 100% accurate. And so big focus on our side is just like being able to like escalate when needed. And I think that we try to start like conversations on that note as well, because sometimes when people are like, hey, this has to be 100% accurate. And I was like, well, I'm sorry to tell you, but if a person's doing it today, it's not 100% accurate. And so you need like these evals, you need some way of like catching it, you need some sort of validation. And I think that building out those processes is quite tough, I think, for a lot of teams because they just don't have like the same framework around it. We're actually working pretty heavily right now on like a human in the loop flow on our side, which is a similar kind of concept, which is like, I think because you guys have built something very similar internally, but trying to like bring that into our system as well, which is something comes through, it doesn't pass a validator check, and it goes into like a queue. And then that way someone can go into the queue, give it a thumbs up, thumbs down, go through and manually check that. Because what we've noticed, of course, that like several of our customers have had like pretty much rebuild that exact same architecture over and over again on their side.
Yeah, that's something that we actually did is that, I don't know if you remember this, but one thing we were really pushing for was a confidence score. Because we actually created a custom prompt, I believe, with Omni to start like kind of in a hacky way, I'll say, like creating the confidence score, but now you guys have it directly integrated into the product, which I think is really important where, like you said, AI is not always accurate. Humans are not also always accurate. And sometimes as a human, I'm unsure about things. I'm not sure what the right answer is. And I think it's really important for these systems to be able to flag, hey, I'm not confident in this, so that's when it's escalated to a human or flagged or hitting some sort of fallback.
I mean that's the most classic GPT is like confidently incorrect. It's almost like it's like trained not to say I don't know because it's like it's optimized to always like return a response to you. Beyond just like what we're doing, like thinking about like broader corporate settings, especially when you get into like agentic type workflows, where the agent could take like between 1 and 50 different steps, and it's connected to like your Slack, your OneDrive. It's it can Google stuff. It can like plug things into Salesforce. Every single one of these almost needs some type of eval to it. And it's I'm not sure if that's like anyone's really like kind of cracked that in terms of like, hey, here's how you make like agents observable. And then the evals itself are really hard because they're dependent on ground truth data. Like you have to know, okay, what's a good example of like a ground truth data of a customer emails me this invoice and I'm going to go look up this customer in Salesforce, then plug in the invoice data inside of it. Like people don't really have like a ground truth for like exactly how you would benchmark that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, it's very much an evolving area, but I think for the people who maybe they don't have an AI workflow in production, one thing that I would highly recommend is starting with a straightforward use case where it's only exposing data to internal users so that you can get confident that, okay, this workflow is producing the accurate information so that I can do something like expose it to a customer. And one framework I've heard about that I really like is looking at inference value over inference risk and like evaluating what's a workflow that is very low risk. One example for us was this onboarding workflow where we needed to make sure that the proper documents were uploaded. And when we first pushed that to production, we only exposed that to our internal users. And there's a really clear backdrop where they could modify the answer. We're also using a much earlier GPT-4 model. So the accuracy was definitely not nearly as good as what the accuracy is of models today. And if you're interested about model accuracy, Tyler's LinkedIn
check out
is a great place.
Follow Tyler Moran on
I'll plug that
LinkedIn,
real
and you'll
quick.
get some.
He's definitely the
evals.
first one. The first one. Today was actually a model release day, and
I know we're
the first one. Omni, I think.
Actively running
Yeah,
benchmark.
yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
OpenAI has like 20 active models right now. It's kind of insane. So,
Yeah, it is insane.
It's tough. It's actually tough to keep up with that.
It is, and you never know when they're going to drop them. So it's exciting.
So I guess do you want to change subjects over?
Sure.
And hear about what this thing is on your T-shirt
sure.
here, the Simple Company.
So I left my previous company and now starting the Simple Company. The first product of the Simple Company is the Simple Stack. And one thing I saw at my last company, we onboarded about 100 new employees last year, and it was really exciting. But every single time that a new employee was onboarded, we would have to go in and set up 16 different user accounts. And at the end of the day, especially for my small tech team, that was time that was taken out of them solving the harder problems like document processing and like solving some of the manual bottlenecks that we had around the onboarding and underwriting flows. That's where I kind of was looking at the landscape and saw a lot of automated onboarding and offboarding tools and authentication tools on the higher end of the market, but nothing that was really serving smaller companies.
Yeah.
And I think once you grow and have a number of roles and permissions across all of your tech stack, that's when it's really difficult and it's going to be much more harder to rip out all those roles and permissions and put that in authentication and bring that into another tool or system. And I really believe, especially for companies like yourself that are doing things like going through SOC 2 audits and selling to larger companies where security is really, really important. Authentication across all these systems and permissions and roles is really important internally, and especially for fast-growing companies, can be something that can be overlooked sometimes. So Simple Stack's aim is to build a platform where you can bring in the tools within your tech stack, make sure authentication is a single sign-on provider across your entire tech stack. And when a new sales rep gets onboarded, instead of needing to say, hey, does a sales rep have access to Notion, to Slack, and having someone like either a member of your tech team, the founder, or an executive assistant set up your tech stack to have an automated workflow that will set up the tools and permissions correctly from the start.
So, and you're right that this this exists today in the term of like the enterprise stack, and so like. Yeah,
Okta,
if you're,
Rippling,
yeah, exactly. Okta, like
Better Cloud, Jump Cloud. These are all very expensive and clunky in enterprise tools.
Well, not just that, but it gives you the SSO tax, where it's like any tool you're opting into, it's like, oh, somebody wants to use like Airtable. Airtable is $20 a month. It's like, but Airtable with Okta support is like $3,000 a month annual contract. And it's just like, well, now we've got to sign this up because we want to use Okta to get in here.
Right.
And it's clearly, I mean, the actually building out the like SAML Okta authentication stuff is a huge pain. But yeah, it's something that we run into all the time, especially because like we're always like adding in new tools, and I mean everyone gets the SaaS bloat of the having a dozen like $20 per user per month tools out there, and then adding people, removing people, like just knowing like even like what's in your stack. And it makes sense that like if you have like if you're a large company, you have like a CISO, you have like a InfoSec and like IT team that's like good at onboarding everyone, then that works. But if you're like a 5-person startup and you want to go to like 15 people all of a sudden, it's just a huge pain.
Yeah,
And it would be the founders too.
Right.
that would probably be
many
doing
of the
all of
times.
this work. Yeah.
Whereas I'm sure there's other things like talking to customers, like solving some bottlenecks within your company that you'd probably rather focus. I'm sure there's plenty of things you'd rather focus.
No, I actually prefer to spend 100% of my time like going and adding and removing seats to various SaaS tools.
I mean, I'd love to learn for you guys. I know you're growing your team, and there's new roles that you're bringing on to your team. Like, are there tools that you guys have recently added, or tools that you think that you're gonna add to your tech stack soon to either solve problems that you have or do things that you haven't been doing, like around marketing or sales and things of that nature?
Actually, so on the engineering side, like it's actually relatively tame, I think. Right. It's pretty tied down to like 5-ish sort of tools here, but sales and marketing.
Yes.
Is just an explosion of tools.
Lot of tools.
It's like, because as we've recently started doing just more like email campaigning.
Right.
And it's, in order to do like email campaigning, it's like you need like email warm-ups, you need like instantly, you need somewhere to get lead lists from, you need somewhere to enrich those lead lists with. Right. And then like you need a CRM that you can like sync to all these tools. And pretty much everyone has to be added across that stack if I want to be able to like sign in and see how performance is doing.
Right.
And it's just to set up something of like, we want to start emailing like 1,000 people requires like 5 or 6 SaaS subscriptions.
Right.
And also it required us to like have those and then also like test like 5 or 6 other ones to see which one was actually going to work best for us. Yeah. And then so we need to know to like get those, then like test it, did it not work, cancel the ones that didn't work, scale up on the ones that did work.
Right.
And it's a tedious process.
Yeah, it's tedious, and I think marketing sales is one. I think there's accounting where there's a number of tools, there's banking, there's legal and compliance, there's your cap table as well, where a lot of people are leveraging tools. So there's really what we found is that there's so many different places, project management being another one, where people are leveraging these really powerful tools like Omni AI and adding them to their tech stack. But every single time they add a new tool, that also is adding more management, authentication, that bringing on that tool to the tech stack requires, and then also configuration as well. So there's a lot of really powerful tools, but maybe you don't know how to set up instantly or Salesforce or HubSpot, and maybe your company doesn't want to spend the time to try to figure it out, and maybe that's not the best use of time for your team. So configuration and setting up tools so that you can access the value of them and really instead of just buying the licenses and then really never utilizing and never realizing the full power. I think configuration is really important as well, and something we're thinking a lot about as well.
So one thing that I will say is a big thing for me is source of truth.
Yeah.
So my source of truth for what SaaS subscriptions we have is the bank account. Like I literally just scroll through like the monthly checking account statement, and I'm just like, this is a SaaS, this is SaaS, and that's actually, to be honest, like that's the only way. Yeah. That's the most like real like ground truth I would have right there.
Where you're paying.
What I'm paying for.
And what I think the ground truth should be is where people are actually logging in. And if you have authentication across all these different SaaS tools configured properly, you'll be able to see, Tyler hasn't logged into HubSpot in over a month. Yeah. Is he actually using the subscription that we're paying for? So I think that's a really great way to audit not just the tools that you have, but the tools your team is actually using. Yeah. So did Tyler log into ChatGPT and is using now ChatGPT with his work account and putting in work information into ChatGPT? And maybe that's something that our company doesn't feel comfortable with. So not just the tools that are officially on your tech stack, but what are the tools that are unofficially on your tech stack? And maybe that's a conversation with your employees, like, what is the value that you're getting from all these tools, especially if there's a number of tools that are very common across all of your employees. Maybe that means that they're getting some value from a tool that they don't currently have within the tech stack, and maybe that's something that we should come in and manage. So I think there's a lot of room for opportunities, and something that is really important to think about from day one, so that you don't reach 100 employees and then have to have a conversation around authentication and roles and permissions, because that's when it's much more difficult to solve for.
I think that's another just sort of a side note there is that like day one prep work is, I think it really like incredibly important. We're learning this like as we're kind of like setting up our full sales tech stack. And I'm always, one of my biggest fears as an AI company is that we're not using enough AI. I want to want to make sure like every process that can be handled by like an agent or something like that is being handled. But I feel like you have to kind of like go at things from a very early stage of being like, okay, understand like, where is the data coming from? Like, what's our single source of truth? How are we making sure that like all these connections are clean and like easily understood? Because I think that, even like you get to like 15, 25 people or something like that, and you might have actually just like graduated out of ever being able to fix it, because without at least a ton of change there, because you'll have like 45 different systems that everyone has access to, and you have no idea like which one has control of the other one. Half your data is in a database, the other half is in like Salesforce, the other half is in like PostHog or some sort of analytics platform. And AI is smart, but it's just not at the level of being able to like disentangle that. And so I think that in general, like the more you can do day one to make sure that you're like actually aligned and like, okay, data cleanliness from day one means that you'll be first in line to use every new kind of like AI agent type tool that comes out, because you'll have some sort of central source of truth.
100%. I could not agree with that. I mean, one thing when going back to my last startup, there was files that were stored in multiple different file repositories, and it wasn't until we centralized on Box that we could then leverage AI technologies like Box and like you guys. So that was I think one big thing. I think another thing that I see a lot of these small, fast-growing companies do is the Band-Aid approach is hire an IT analyst to come in and try to unwind things, fix the mess. But I think that if you're able to configure, have a source of truth, and really be able to automate onboarding and offboarding. One founder I talked to in particular recently said that she opened Jira and found they were paying for 100 licenses and they didn't even have 100 employees. So doing things like having automated offboarding for contractors, so that when you bring in a contractor, you set an end date, and that's when all the licenses are turned off. That's when the data access is turned off. I think that's something that not just from a security and privacy standpoint is really important, but also from a cost-saving perspective, of so that you're not paying licenses you're not using. Those are some of the common problems that we're trying to solve.
You should definitely have like a like on again, off again type functionality in here as well.
Yeah, like a toggle.
Because there's also things where it's like someone might come like contract for 6 months and then go and then like come back and contract again like 6 months later. There are a lot of tools that I kind of want to just like use once, cancel, use again later on. Like anything where you
automated trial canceling, so that you don't get charged in 15 days, even though you're trialing it and seeing if it works for you guys. That's a common one. I think like virtual cards are great for that too if you're using a tool like Ramp.
We use Mercury for that, and biggest learning I ever had was like one credit card per SaaS provider.
Yes.
Because you
Turn
just
it on, turn it off.
turn it on, turn it off. You set that limit to be like exactly what your like monthly price is going to be. Because you just get hit with things like out of the blue. It's like, this is random upcharges, or it's just like, oh, you failed to notify us within 90 days of the end of period, and so you've opted into your next annual contract.
Yeah.
The auto renewal contracts by itself, we've had so many headaches with different vendors doing that.
Yeah, not everyone has a simple pricing model like you guys. So it gets really complicated. The terms and details really do matter. That's what we're trying to build, and looking to partner with fast-growing tech startups. So if you're interested, definitely I'll be posting more information about that. So stay tuned. The last thing I want to wrap up on is, I know we were talking a lot about like different AI trends that we're seeing, and I think it's really important that everyone who's watching this gets familiar with what exists today and starts experimenting. And even if AI can't solve their use cases right now, I mean, things are moving so fast that potentially in a few months it might be. But the more familiar you are, the better you'll be able to act on it, and we'll have the learnings of where the strengths and the weaknesses of AI are right now. But I just came back from Google Cloud Next. I just spoke there with Box and Google, which I'll also be posting more information about. But I know we were talking a lot about agents, a lot about MCP. Where do you, obviously being in the heart of where everything is here in San Francisco, what are you hearing from other YC founders, other companies that you're interested in the AI space, and what are you guys cooking up as well on the future roadmap?
Yeah, so this is so I don't want to necessarily go out on camera and say my opinions on MCP. It's still closed source. We had a good conversation on that one earlier today. But yeah, still being sold on the value prop how this one
we'll
worked
get
out.
you. We'll convert you at some point.
So I think that this is actually something that I think is really, really interesting. So you've got like the last like dozen or so like models that have been released, and like one being today. Especially like all the reasoning models and all like the agentic type processes here. And so there's the one that I'm actually the most excited about was the 4.1 model that came out recently, which is not the top of the charts by any means, but it's like 5% more accurate than 4.0, and it's like 20% lower cost, which like doesn't make headlines a lot, but when you're building stuff and it's like you just need like high throughput, like high accuracy. If you get something that's like an additional like couple percentage points of accuracy in it, then that really matters.
The difference between the use case working or not, really.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, this is something I've actually talked a lot about recently. It's like compound error rate. So the reason AI agents have not fully taken off yet is just the mathematical difficulty of it. Which is, okay, if you have like, a 10-step process that you're trying to do as an agent, and you are 99% accurate in every step of that process, that means that you have a 90% chance of completing a 10-step process. If you are 95% accurate at every step of the process, that means you have a 60% chance of completing a 10-step process. And this is why like, just things where it's like, hey, this new model came out and it's like 1% more accurate, get really exciting to me and like everyone else building in the space, because it means like, oh wow, this means that like we just get a little bit extra like output on everything, like the accuracy, like the actual like compound accuracy rate. So like accuracy at step 1 goes up by 1%, but compound accuracy rate goes up by 25%. And so it just means you can do like slightly more each time. And so I think that's a really exciting thing. And then everyone is really just looking for that right now, which is like, what's the what's kind of like the workhorse models that we can use, where it's just like, it's reliable, it's repeatable, it's giving us exactly what we need. It's not as unpredictable. So some of the reasoning models, or you can kind of think of them as being like very high temperature models, like because they take like multiple reasoning steps in the process. Every additional step they take gives variation.
Really big, yeah. I remember you talking about that when the O1 model first got released, and from an eval standpoint, a lot of people were talking about one shot versus like these reasoning models, and how reasoning tends to give a better response. But I thought it was really interesting that you talked a lot about like the variance, that they give very different responses. So I thought that was really interesting. It makes a lot of sense.
Well, yeah, with the document side of things, it had a tendency to actually underperform, which was that was like the surprising thing. And I think it makes sense because imagine like you're actually just given, like someone hands you a piece of paper and it says like invoice number at the top of it, and they say like, they say like, give me the invoice number. But before you do that, really think about it. Then you start, you're going to start second guessing yourself. You're like, okay, so really thinking about it now.
That's funny.
I think that's kind of like what's happened with some of them. And so it's like they do better at complex tasks and actually a little bit worse at simple tasks.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I definitely see with all the advancements, like the things that are making headlines versus the things that people are actually using in a production use case today are usually different. So I think it's really insightful, and definitely like a lot of the content that you're putting out is from like the day-to-day, what you're seeing from talking to customers, and I know how much you guys like talked to us and really worked with us on some of the use cases that we're building. And I'm sure you're doing that across like all of your customers, and really hearing what are the real problems that are coming up, and what's the real world evals, so to speak.
And I think that's I think that's definitely across the board, both from like talking to other like YC founders and stuff, and then also like talking to our customers. I think reliability is really kind of like the main thing everyone's spending their time on right now. Where it's like, we find this on our side as well. Like we can throw up like really like flashy demo stuff, and it's like great. It's like cool, like proof of concept. We know that this can work. But then getting it to work like 99% of the time is a lot of effort. I think that across the board, everyone I talk to, like that's their main thing. It's like, okay, we launched this cool feature, like we did this proof of concept. We know it is possible. Like we are here as a society, like as far as AI can get us here. But then like as soon as you deploy, it just gets really hard. And I think that like there's tons and tons of tools coming out. There's a whole bunch of like AI eval suites coming out. I think that they're all like super necessary.
Well, I'm excited to see what you guys all build. I know that a lot of people are going to be building on top of you guys. So really excited to see what everyone else builds as well. I think manual document workflows has really been a bottleneck for a lot of companies. But even beyond the manual workflows, I think tools like yours like really unlock a lot of new products and tools. Taking a picture with your phone and being able to extract information from it, and things of that nature, I think are some really interesting use cases. And excited to see what you guys continue to cook up here, and all the other like AI and workflow automation tools like in the area. I think are developing some technology that even if it's not being used by enterprises today, I think in the like near future will start being adopted.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think it's Yeah, the amount of things you can do today, and just like the ease with which you can start to actually do it, and like get some of these solutions out in place without having to spend like tons of development hours on it. I think that's probably the biggest.
And experiment with it. Like I think that's the best way to get comfortable with these tools and to understand where their value lies is to test them out. And the easier that people can test them out and get more familiar with them, the sooner I think things are going to get adopted. So, well, really appreciate the time and
appreciate it as well.
Where can people find you?
People can find us on LinkedIn or come to getomni.ai and follow along. You'll get lots of good video content, and then lots of evals, lots of benchmarks, lots of document work.
Yeah.
And what about the Simple company?
Yeah, in terms of Simple Stack, we just recently announced our beta at Google Cloud Next. People go to mysimplestack.com and sign up to onboard today. And really excited to meet you guys, learn more about what are the challenges you guys are facing today, and what are the AI use cases that you guys are looking to build in the future. So Tyler, really appreciate the time.
Appreciate the time as well.
Thank you for hosting me, and stay tuned.